These gyoza are incredible. As you can see, don't have many ingredients and taste fantastic. Now, I should point out these would normally be chicken gyoza, but I'm not sure when you're watching this. However, it was filmed in February 2021 and the pandemic is still in place, so getting chicken mince was nigh on impossible in my local store. So I've substituted it for turkey mince. It'll be the first time doing so. I am certain the taste will not be hugely different. You can also substitute it for pork mince, which is much easier to find if you can't get chicken mince. So the ingredients we're all going to put in, normally you'd put in a blender. When it's such a small number of ingredients, I find a slightly better result from the NutriBullet. So I'm just going to start popping everything in there. We have got 1 clove of garlic. And into that, we shall add a thumb-sized piece of ginger. As you can see, the garlic was roughly chopped, and as is the ginger, so a thumb-sized piece of ginger goes straight in there. 2 spring onions, or if you're like myself, Irish, you'll call them scallions. So 2 of those go in there. And finally, into that mix, we pop 2 Savoy cabbage leaves. And if we just tear those up roughly, save the time of chopping, they are about to go into a blender or a NutriBullet. So as I say, very, very roughly chop those up. And then we just pop the lid on that and pop it on until it gets not quite to a pulp, but until it gets to a reasonably fine mixture. And as you can see, that is now nicely mixed and chopped into quite a fine mixture, as you can probably see from that. Now we are going to add in about 6 water chestnuts and just drop those in. These ones are sliced, but it can be about 6 whole ones. And as I say, just pop those straight in there. Now these you don't want to go as smooth as the previous mixture. You want them still to have a bit of crunch, and they should be drained first, which I of course have done. So just pop those in and pop it back onto the NutriBullet. And I can see through that they haven't been chopped too finely. They are exactly the consistency I was looking for. So we're now going to take these out of that and tip everything into the, well, turkey in your case, but perhaps, but in my case, sorry, chicken in your case, but in my case, the turkey. I'm just going to mix all of that in, and this bit as well. As you can see, I have mixed that for about a minute by hand and just got my hands in there and dirty and mixed it all around. So now we're almost ready to fill those gyoza. Just time to add the final liquids. Firstly, we are going to add 2 teaspoons full of this lovely oyster sauce. And then we are going to add 2 teaspoons of soy sauce. Now this might be a controversial choice. All of my recipes are interpretations and slightly altered. The traditional version of these would put sake into them. I actually prefer a little drop of sherry. So 1 teaspoon full of sherry. I think it gives it a gorgeous aromatic, deep flavor. And then finally, half a teaspoon of sesame oil. And I'm going to do exactly the same thing again. I'm going to combine this by hand, keep caressing it and folding it into itself, and let all of these flavors combine, and then let it sit for 5 minutes just to absorb all those flavors, and then we'll come back and we'll fill those gorgeous gyoza. So as you can see, I've combined all of those fluids in with all the other ingredients. And you can see what I mean about the chunks of water chestnut still being in it. That's something that you really want to do to make sure that you've got that lovely bite. So you will have noticed that my countertop has looked like it's been caught up in the beast from the east. I've covered it in corn flour because it's going to make it so much easier for these not to stick to the countertop, and also a plate to sit them on covered in corn flour. This will only take some of them because this should make you about 2 dozen gyoza. We're going to start filling our pastries, our cases, which you will pick up from any Asian supermarket. They're in the freezer section, and you'll notice that there's wonton ones which are square, and then there's these ones which are round. Let them defrost for about half an hour, which I have done, before you start to fill those. And what we want to do is just get a teaspoonful of that gorgeous mixture, pop it in the middle, and then fold that over after we have used some water to moisten one side so that it actually sticks down, and we just tease that along to make sure that what we don't want is the filling to leak out too much. Doesn't matter if it's a teensy little bit like that, but we don't want big chunks of it, because then of course it's not going to stay sealed when we cook it. So crimp that down all around the side into a half moon shape, and then we pop that onto a plate with corn flour, and we just keep repeating that process. What you don't want to do is sit it where you've just put the teaspoon of, where you've just put the water where you've sealed it, because that will make it sticky. So you keep moving it around, and then in between every so many of them, just dry your counter down and reapply another little bit of corn flour, and just make sure that's nicely spread along, and tease that so that it fills that shape nicely. And I've noticed there's little pockets just here and here, so you can just tease it so that it nicely fills the shape. And you can see how incredibly easy this is. I actually find gyoza much more therapeutic and easy than dim sum. I think it's because dim sum sometimes can be stressful when you're filling it. Any slight alteration in the ingredients, and if the texture changes in the middle, it can start to get a bit fiddly, and I find that frustrating. Whereas this, I adore. It's just therapeutic and simple because of the straightforward circular shape of these, and because it's flat when you're doing it. So rather than bore you by doing lots of these now, I'll come back to you in a moment whenever I've got, I'd say about 8 fit into my frying pan, so I'll do them in batches of 8. So I'll do a few more of those and come back to you in a second. I said we would fit about 8 in here. As I made each one of these gyoza, I realized putting them on the plate to comfortably fit in the pan, probably only 6. So I'm just going to cook them in batches of 6. I've preheated this pan, nice medium heat coming off that now, and I'm just going to put in about a tablespoon full of sesame oil, and I'm going to spread that around the pan to make sure it's all evenly covered. Oh, that smells wonderful already. I'm not sure there's anything like the smell of heating sesame oil. And we're going to fry each one of these under peril of your life. Do not be tempted to flip them, because of course gyoza only has one side, which is browned. And I'll show you what we'll do with the other side in 2 minutes time. So fry these in that sesame oil for 2 minutes. And as I say, no flipping whatsoever. You want them to just go nicely brown on that downside. And if there's one like this one, which has quite a lot of excess corn flour to stop it having stuck to the plate, then just wipe that corn flour off. And what you don't want, as you can see, there's one touching just there. I don't want that because I don't want them to stick together whenever those are frying. So we're going to let these fry for 2 minutes on the one side. Remember, do not turn them over. And we'll come back in 2 minutes when they're nice and brown. So I'm not turning these. I'm just touching them slightly to make sure none of them have stuck. And they haven't, because we had that nice splash of sesame oil. So now, what we're going to do, like I said, don't turn them over. What we're going to do is even, because they should only be brown on one side. So we're going to get this is boiling hot water. And if you just put a decent splash into that pan, probably about 1.5 tablespoons full. Cover that on the medium heat. And we're going to let that cook for about 5 minutes. And we'll come back and those will have nicely steamed. Those have been steaming in that pan for the last 5 minutes on a medium heat, and they look wonderful. So now we just make sure that those have, give them a slight stir to make sure that they haven't stuck, and it's time to plate those marvelous gyoza up. And as you can see, just the one side should look like that, and they should be served with the gorgeous brown side up. And we'll just keep doing this until we have them perfectly plated up. And there we have it. Don't those look divine? Gorgeous, really easy. Look how few ingredients there were. People think gyoza is going to be so incredibly difficult to make. It's not. Very few ingredients, very simple to make. Easy for novices, and it's something you could teach your kids to do as well if they to help them develop an Asian palate. In terms of dipping, I recommend soy sauce, as always, and dumpling vinegar, which I think is wonderful. I adore it. I adore all kinds of vinegar, but what I tend to do is do half and half into that and dip those. So, would you believe it? Gyoza, quick, simple, and tasty.